Tonight's topic is how to make more time for each other in marriage. Making time for each other is actually one of the great challenges in married life. So, Lizzie, you guys have 2 kids?
Boys.
It's hard, and you're both working. It's just hard. So just to share some studies, families in Los Angeles allowed cameras to be installed in their own homes to objectively record how the family spent its time. The average couple with young children communicated just 35 minutes a week, 5 minutes a day, and most of the conversation was logistical. Hey, we're running low on toilet paper. When I meet with couples for counseling, one of the questions I ask them is, when was the last time you had a meaningful conversation? Most popular answer is, we can't remember. It was before the baby was born, which was 3 years ago. So that's one study. Dr. Gottman surveyed 60,000 couples, asked each partner 600 questions. So an extraordinarily thorough study of marriage. Number one complaint by far, listed by over 80% of couples, we're not having enough fun. We're just not having enough fun. You're busy with so many things. I have to mow the lawn tomorrow. If you're not having fun, after a while, the spirit just rebels. The most common complaint I hear when I meet with couples, Peter, we spend no time together. I'll meet couples before their wedding day and they're so happy and cheerful, and then I'll meet them 5 years later and they're exhausted and just not enjoying their relationship because they just don't make time for each other and for fun. So tonight's topic is really important. I did want to share, so we're going to discuss strategies, how to make time for each other. Just to share one story, these things are hard to believe, but these are true stories for marriages. A friend of mine took my program, and then he called up. He and his wife were struggling. They were in their 3rd year of marriage at this point. They had 2 kids. And so I asked them how they had fallen in love. They said, Peter, we fell in love going on long walks together. And I was like, great, my wife and I love long walks. From the research, going on a long walk together is just one of the most effective ways for couples to connect. So I asked them, when was the last time you went on a long walk? A little embarrassed, they said, actually, we love long walks so much, I proposed marriage in the middle of a long walk. And we've never been on a long walk since. We got busy with wedding planning. We got pregnant on our wedding night. Here we are, 3 years. We haven't gone on a long walk since the day we got engaged. I'm like, guys, it doesn't cost a penny to go on a long walk. Advance reservations are not required. You could begin right outside your front door. I mean, this is not complicated going on a walk together, but the couple wasn't making time for even that. This is scary, what I'm about to share. I've had couples tell me, married 20, 30, 40 years, Peter, we haven't had a single date in 20, 30 years, and we didn't even realize it. We just got so busy with work and raising kids and social obligations. But that sentence I hear all the time, and we didn't even realize it. One father told me, Peter, I wish we met you 30 years ago. To imagine realizing you went 30 years without connecting at all as a couple. It happens. By good, successful people that just put their marriage on the back burner without even realizing they were doing it. So we're all so busy. How can we make time for each other? So I'm going to make 5 points tonight. Let me just list them, then I'll elaborate on them. Point number 1. If you want to consistently make time for each other, you absolutely need a shared calendar. If you don't have a shared calendar as a couple, your hope for consistently making time for each other is near zero. So I call a shared calendar mandatory marriage advice. Number 2, you need to be creative. My least favorite marriage advice is couples should have date night. Now, I'm not opposed to date night. It's just so unimaginative to propose date night. For so many couples, date nights can't work. I met with a couple for counseling 2 weeks ago. The mom looked near death. I was meeting them at 9 p.m. via Zoom, and she was in so much pain. They had 4 kids. To propose to that couple to have a date night is just ridiculous. Why not a date morning or a date lunch? Or a Saturday morning, a nice relaxed Saturday morning. So couples need to be creative in looking for ways to connect. Point number 3, you need to think small. My wife and I are not going to have a leisurely 3-hour date anytime soon. We have 2 kids, we're both working. So if it required 3-hour chunks of time, we're not going to have any dates. But if we can get smaller dates, more frequently, that actually makes a lot of difference. Point number 4 is consistency is key. Consistency is key. But I was wildly inconsistent early in marriage. I would connect with my wife, get busy with work. She wouldn't hear from me for weeks. That's not good. So if you make time for each other this week, you got to make time for each other next week and the week after that. So consistency is key. And here's the 5th point I'm going to elaborate on in a little bit. You need to want to spend time with each other. So I was at a wedding this Saturday night, father one of your couples actually, very nice. They had their ceremony at St. Patrick's on Wednesday, then they had an outdoor celebration on Saturday, and they wrote their wedding vows for the outdoor celebration, and here's part of their wedding vows. I promise to put at least as much effort into our marriage and family as I do my work and hobbies. That was part of their promise to each other. And I know the couple, they both love their work, they're both passionate about hobbies, and then the relationship just gets put on the back burner. So if you want to make time for each other, you need to want to make time for each other. You have to be as committed to your marriage as you are to your job and hobbies. So let me elaborate on these. First, a shared calendar. We did not have one when we first got married, and it caused problems. So now we have a shared digital cloud-based calendar. I actually sent my wife one invitation like 17 plus years ago. Please subscribe to my work calendar, which is irregular. She needs to know when I'm working, when I'm not working. She subscribes to my personal calendar. My wife has a regular work schedule, so I don't need to see her work schedule, but I do subscribe to her personal schedule. We have a calendar for each of our kids who are busy. We have a calendar for the family, the things we do together. It's a shared cloud-based calendar system. Our marriage is here and would be here without it, so it's really essential marriage advice. Before we had the calendar, just to share why we did it, is I actually came home early from work one night to surprise my wife and discovered she was out with friends. And then the next night I was working late and she was home alone complaining, "When are you getting home?" And I just realized, my goodness, if we had a shared calendar, I could have worked late yesterday when she was busy with friends, and maybe we could have had the evening together. We missed so many opportunities by not having a shared calendar. A shared calendar allows us to see opportunities to connect in this world we're living in. I could go to my wife. Hey, it looks like we're both working from home on Thursday. Maybe we could make some time in the afternoon for each other. But if you're not aware of each other's schedule, you're not going to see that opportunity coming up. One thing I tell my wife is, if you can make time for the dentist, you can make time for your husband. But the calendar can help you see opportunities and just put it on the calendar. To me, the most important thing about a calendar, it's a system of accountability. That whole concept of consistency. I made a promise to my wife to spend time with her every week, to take her out to theater. calendar, am I keeping that promise? Without an objective record, you could be those couples, we went 30 years and didn't even realize it. If you guys had a calendar and were in the habit of looking at the calendar, you would see you're not making time for each other. So a shared calendar is number one, not most important, but number one. It's just an essential marriage tool. And if you don't know how to set one up, send me an email. I have a blog post on how to set up a calendar. So number two, you need to be creative. Date nights work for some couples. I have a friend with an easy job. His wife has an easy job. They get home at 5 o'clock, both of them relatively in good shape. They can have date nights. For a lot of us, date nights are just not possible. I work a lot of evenings. So my wife and I have morning dates. My wife and I had a morning date this morning. It was awesome. We dropped the kids off at 7:15 at their school. We had a whole hour together before her work day began this morning. So I love morning dates. The calendar helps us put them on and make them happen. Just to share some stories of couples and how creative planning can help. This is an East Side couple. He worked in the restaurant industry, so he worked essentially 4 till midnight. She had an office job and would work essentially 9 to 5, so they were not seeing each other at all. So I asked, where do you live, where do you work? So their apartment was like 4 blocks from her office. And so I asked them, could you possibly get together for lunch once or twice a week? We can do that. I mean, it's just like a 3-4 block walk. So date nights weren't possible for that couple, but they could have lunch dates. You don't have to have a lunch date every single day, but once or twice a week, that goes a long way. I met another couple, absolutely great couple, but his company gave him a big project and he had to work late for weeks and weeks on it. And she'd be at home making dinner for him, complaining, when are you getting home? And it just dragging them both down. So again, I asked them, where do you live? Turns out she's like 3 blocks from his office, complaining that he's not coming home, the dinner's getting cold. Well, could you possibly just take the dinner to his office and sit down and have dinner with him at his office? We could do that. No, not everybody could do that, but they could do that. It's like, hey, I'm the only one here at that hour. There's no, why not, you know? Another couple, this is true for a lot of couples I work with, they're just so insanely busy during the week, and they work far apart. And they weren't seeing each other at all, but they had a big fight because they didn't see each other all week long. And then Saturday morning, they wake up early to go to his sister's house, and then they get in a fight on the way. The sister was having a party. Did you have to leave that early Saturday morning for the party? Could you have had a 1 or 2 hour date as a couple Saturday morning and then leave for the sister's house? We could have done that. So I actually recommend to a lot of couples Saturday morning dates. So just like you work hard during the week, come home, chill and relax Friday night. But if you have a Saturday morning date on the calendar, you're looking forward to it all week, you're nicer to each other all week, and you're actually connecting when you're not exhausted. At a couple, they actually, well, things got bad. They had 2 boys. And they were hiring a babysitter for a date night, but I got them to hire the babysitter for Saturday mornings. It's like, guys, you're trying to connect when you're just so exhausted and it's not going well. So pick a time that's better for both of you. So this is creative date planning. Doesn't have to be a romantic dinner. Walks are amazing. My wife and I just love going on walks, and you could do it right outside your door. The key is you need to put it on the calendar or you're probably not, it's not gonna happen. So point number 3, busy couples need to think small. This couple I met the other week, they had 4 children. She's in absolute pain at night. He's actually working from home, very busy with work, but working from home. They actually agreed to have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday lunch dates, but just 15-minute lunch dates. Look, I can't even take a whole hour off, but 15 minutes 3 times a week when we're not exhausted. And I did get them to agree as well to Saturday morning dates. So have a relaxed date on Saturday morning, but during the week, 15-minute lunch dates, that could be a big difference. So I thought the key to marriage was going on a week-long romantic vacation in the summer, going out to the nicest restaurants on Friday night. It's nice if you can do that, but that's from the research, that's not the key to happy marriage. These smaller dates more often are actually much more effective. So think small. I'm an advocate of what I call micro dates. So this is one of the most insane stories, and I've heard it more than once actually. But I've met couples who tell me they don't say a single word to each other Monday through Friday. Both work long hours. One will get up early, go to work earlier, put in 12 hours at the office, come home, go to sleep. Meanwhile, the other has a little bit of a later schedule, and by the time he comes home, she's already asleep. When he wakes up, she's already gone. I've had several couples tell me they don't say a single word to each other Monday through Friday.
Maybe that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, well, wait till you hear. By the way, they didn't even realize, couples don't realize they're drifting apart, you know? And so I asked them where they worked. It turned out they worked in the same Manhattan office building. So here's this couple sleeping in the same bed and working in the same Manhattan office building, and they didn't say a single word to each other Monday through Friday. Guys, do you get coffee in the afternoon? They both got coffee in the afternoon from the same coffee shop in the same building and didn't say a single word to each other Monday through Friday. Could you possibly coordinate? So they emailed me 2 weeks later that they were able to get together 4 days a week at the coffee shop, which is 200 times a year. And that changes the whole context of the relationship if you can do that. Bless you. Another couple, she had a more 9-to-5 job. He was 4 to midnight. He worked at 42nd Street on Times Square. She worked at 50th and Broadway. And he would take the subway. They didn't spend, another one of these couples, not a single word all week long because their work schedules are just different. Hey, you're taking the subway right by her office. Could you possibly take an earlier subway and instead of getting off at 42nd Street, get off at 50th Street? Can you come downstairs for a quick cup of coffee? I can do that. So that's their new ritual where he gets a little earlier toward work and they can connect for coffee at 50th Street and then he'll just walk the last few blocks to his office. So think small, be creative. You really do need to see each other. For some couples, it's not possible to do that because they work a distance away from each other. So one couple, I had them agree to a 12 p.m. Zoom phone call as a ritual. Just a couple of minutes. Doesn't have to be an hour-long discussion, but just that is a great touch point. So our first 3 points. Shared calendar, you need to be creative. Busy couples need to think small. 4th point is consistency is key. Life comes at us inconsistent. You have a project at work, the baby gets sick, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Early in marriage, I connected with my wife when it was easy, and then when I got busy, she wouldn't hear from me. We actually went 3 weeks. I have a memory that my wife and I went 3 weeks with hardly saying a word to each other. I was even working on the weekends on a big project. We slept in the same bed and basically didn't say a word for 3 weeks. Then the project was successfully concluded, and I looked at my wife and I was like, oh my goodness, she could have been diagnosed with cancer 3 weeks ago and I wouldn't have known it because I was so caught up in my own world. So life is inconsistent. If you want a happy marriage for a lifetime, you need to consistently connect. You just got to put your foot down and find a way to connect every single week at least. So my wife and I made a commitment to have 2 morning dates a week right now. And we just look at that calendar and like, boom, this is, you know, if it has to be a Zoom, if one of us is traveling, we'll do it. But we just have to put our foot down and make time for each other. So here's an idea where we're talking about the video kisses. I remember reading the research and hey, we need to consistently connect, but sometimes our life just gets so crazy. I'm in sessions that could last 6 hours sometimes. You know, my wife has her own schedule. There are times we literally can't even talk to each other over the phone. So a couple gave me the fancy word for this. It's asynchronous communication, and that is the video kisses. So now I'm ready to show you just 2 examples. This first one, you can see just how handsome I can be. So I was at this wedding over the weekend, outdoor celebration, and I sent my wife this video.
Mama, the officiant is here. The guests are here. A few raindrops are here. Only missing the bride, the groom, and the parents, but that's okay. At least I got here before they did. Anyway, love you. Be in touch. Bye-bye.
So it's asynchronous. I'm capturing the moment. You know, it was a wedding about to start any minute now. But we feel connected, even though I was far from home, actually. So you can keep the connection strong. One more example. Just be creative.
Good morning, Mama. Good morning, Albina. Good morning, Maria. It's your dad. Just got back from Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Anyway, the sun is rising just behind me, so it's creating the effect of a super long shadow. So right now I am Daddy Longlegs. Love you guys. Miss you. See you soon.
So even, yes.
Does she reciprocate?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I was going to share some of hers to me,
Curious.
but my favorite one she sent me, she doesn't like the way her hair looked, so I don't. And this is going on YouTube, so I'm not getting in trouble with my wife. Yeah, it goes both ways. I told my wife I need to see you because sometimes our schedules are so crazy that, you know, we don't have time to connect in person. So if we don't see each other, but this is a very important point. The great majority of communication is nonverbal. So if you don't see each other, you're not going to be connected. So this 4th point is consistency is key. You need to consistently connect. So you have to be creative and find a way to connect even when it seems impossible. So these videos have been, for us, marriage saving actually at times. All right, so here's my 5th and last point. You need to want to spend time with each other. Now you might think, of course we want to spend time with each other, but really when you get down to it, you know, is your marriage an absolute priority? Or are you letting other responsibilities just take precedent again and again and again? So I do think couples need a mindset shift. This couple from the weekend, I promise to put at least as much effort into our marriage and family as I do my work and hobbies. They struggle with doing that, so they even put it in their wedding vows that we really need to make our marriage a priority. And so how to do that? How can we do that? So I think like we should spend more time with each other. We should do something fun together. Let's watch a movie, you know. But vague plans don't seem to succeed very well when you're busy. So I really urge couples to come up with an actual detailed plan. These are the things we want to do together. So in every talk, I mentioned my creating a shared vision in marriage exercise. We were struggling to make time for each other. Then we didn't always agree on how to spend time together. And then we didn't even have a plan. Hey, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? It's hard to make time for each other if that's where you're at. So I asked my wife, write down all the things that make you happy as an individual, everything you want us to do as a couple, as a family, your dreams for me, and vice versa. We first did this 18 years ago, and my wife actually told me, maybe she should give this talk instead of me. She says, Peter, I dream of quiet time with you. That was my wife's number one dream. No work, no cell phone, no sports, no family, no friends, no documentaries. I was once watching a documentary on the history of the American highway system, which I did find interesting. And my wife was like yelling at me, you're married. What are you doing watching a history of the American highway system? You can spend time with me. But I was not making my marriage a priority early in marriage. There I was watching documentaries on the highway system. So we developed a plan. Life is coming at us fast. We really need a plan. So my wife asked me for 2 dates a week. The dates don't have to involve going out for dinner, but just no cell phone, sports, family, etc. She says, I don't even care when they happen. You can pick when they happen. My wife asked me for 4 weekends a year. No family, no friends, no cell phone, no sports. Hey, that's a reasonable request. By the way, that is an amazing thing to do. Challenge you. Can you do it? We do it with our girls, by the way. And they don't complain because we set expectations in advance. It's going to be a cell phone free weekend, and we're just going to really reconnect as a family. It's beautiful. My wife wrote that she'd love to go to theater. Well, that's I like theater too. We talked about it probably for a couple of years without doing it. Let's go to theater once every 2 months. Doesn't have to be Broadway. A week at the beach every summer. That's what my wife asked for. I'm like, I want one party a month at our house with friends, and I want you to be cheerful about it. But I always wanted to party, and my wife always wanted quiet time with me, and we just had these stubborn stalemates again and again, and neither of us were getting what we wanted. And so it's hard to make time for each other in that circumstance. So to me,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Sorry. How much does in your marriage or experience, setting that expectation of this is a thing that makes me happy?
Yes.
How big of a difference does that make when it comes time to host the party or whatever?
Yeah. Okay, good. So what I do, but this is the 3 sections of this, what's important to me, what do we want to do together and with our kids even, and then what are my dreams for you? So we had a very open conversation with each other, but one key is to approach it like my wife and I adopted this is a great approach to marriage. Are you ready, guys? If it's important to you, it's important to me. So I told my wife, if you like the beach, I like the beach. Which I didn't. But now it's like if my wife says, hey, let's go to the beach, hey, that's important to her. Now, so we did embrace what's important to each other. The key is, in my opinion, is to not randomly decide every weekend, what are we going to do this weekend? Because if we randomly decide every weekend, I will propose every single weekend a party. And my wife will propose every single weekend a quiet weekend with me. So we sat down, I did counseling with a couple last night. And this was the very issue that they were talking about. And guys, you need a plan for the year, not for the weekend. If you're only discussing the weekend, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, potentially, and you could have that same fight every weekend. So the key is to take a big picture look. That's what this exercise really promotes. So I did get my wife to be cheerful once a month about a party. We plan it at least weeks in advance so that she can see it coming. but she also looks at the calendar and see that she's getting the quiet time that she loves. So one of the great benefits of a calendar, you can see you're taking turns. You can see there's a balance. So the calendar is an objective record. So I definitely want my dreams to come true. So if I'm always saying yes to my wife, okay, we'll go to the beach again, but we're not having parties, we're not having football trips, you know, I'm not gonna be happy in that marriage for very long. So, and I have had to tell my wife at times, this is important to me. I need this. And she's like, okay. But I did have a rule. I do have a rule. For every one football game I put on the calendar, I must put my wife on the calendar twice. Because I want her to keep quiet when the game is on. It occurred to me that if I talked to her before the game and gave her hope that we were going on a hike the day after the game, she might leave me alone when the game was on. So you do need to make room for each other's priorities, whatever they may be. But the calendar helps you see there's a balance. But you know, it really is good to set expectations in advance. So I plan the beach trip 11 months in advance, by the way, and I am cheerful when I go, even though it's not my favorite thing. But if my wife, I came home right now and says, my wife said, let's go to the beach, you know, I might be like, oh man. So if you can see it coming and so does that answer your question at all? Yeah. But always, whenever we decide everything in our marriage, we really try to keep in mind the balance. We have an agreement in marriage, we always have to find a win-win solution. So if I feel strongly that I need to win this, I haven't seen my friends in a while, we just need a party, then I make a point to make sure that the next weekend would be her favorite weekend. So, I think that's pretty much it. So let's see here. So that's really it. So couples who are creative, who think small, who have a clear vision for what they want to do, a calendar so they can see opportunities coming, a calendar to hold them accountable. Those couples are just far more successful at making time for each other. But I do urge couples to be radically committed to consistency, and because if you're not, life gets in the way. Life can sweep you away. So, and make realistic goals. You know, my wife didn't ask me for three-hour dates a week. You know, it's like 2 one-hour dates a week that could happen whenever it works for me. I'm like, okay, that's good. Anyway, so any questions or discussion or thoughts? Yes.
I have a few.
Yep.
The dates, do you leave the girls and you
Yep.
go somewhere? So you're not trying to connect in the living room while they're on their iPads in the other room?
Yeah, so there does need to be some creativity there. So one of the greatest inventions in world history is school. So my wife and I are definitely looking at the calendar, you know, like, hey, let's connect when the kids are at school. That's, like, for us, a really good one. Our kids, how old? Your kids are?
12 and 10.
12 and 10. So ours are a little older than yours. So like friends' houses, like, you know, definitely conspiring with friends. Hey, look, we'll watch your kids if you can, you know. But the calendar can really, like, you have to plan that in advance. So definitely we try to make time for each other when the kids are occupied. So,
When you talk about that calendar, so I have an outlet. We just moved to Google Calendar.
Yep.
Like at work. Jay's on a different one. I just tend to invite him to, like, if I'm having
Sure.
a girls' night out,
Yep.
I'll just say Lizzie out with the girls, and I put it on his calendar.
Okay.
So is that enough when you mean shared calendar?
No. So that's
Just let him know what I'm up to.
I'm not even going to say that's good. It's better than nothing, but so here's the problem with that. So here's the problem with that approach. It's better than not doing it, but the problem with that approach is Okay, but here's the problem. Here's the problem with that approach is, number one, it's inefficient. The most colorful counseling session I ever had, Italian couple from Brooklyn, he videotaped their fight. His wife was wildly throwing things at him, yelling expletives at him. Guys, what's the problem? I met him the very next day. What's the problem? And the wife goes, what's the problem? He forgot to bring home our baby. And well, guys, didn't I tell you about that calendar? You know, did you do it? No. They were relying on calendar invites. So they're inefficient. So his defense was, she sent me 100 calendar invites and I forgot to accept one and forgot to bring the baby home as a result. So problem number one is it's inefficient. Problem number two, which is the bigger problem, is you only see a part of the picture. If you're only seeing what's the invitations for. And when you have kids and you're married, I think my wife needs to see the whole picture. If I'm planning on watching a football game at home, I actually put that on the calendar. And there's a lot of them. If I have to individually invite my wife, like, hey, I'm gonna watch this game, hey, that might annoy her, but you know, she really needs to know when I'm gonna be watching the game, as an example, so she can plan accordingly. Our kids are very active. If I have to send an invitation to my wife every single time my daughter has a gymnastics practice, I mean, that would be crazy. So we have one calendar, we both subscribe to it, it just no need for invitations. So it's efficient, but also you see the whole picture. Hey, both our girls are gonna be busy, you know, at that time. Good chance for Mr. and Mrs. to spend some time with each other. So you really need to see the big picture, and sending individual invites doesn't allow you to see the big picture. Anyway, does that make any sense?
It does. Is it a Google Calendar?
Okay, so it's one app, and there's 100 apps that do it. We use the built-in Apple app, but all the calendar programs save the calendar data in the same CalDAV format. So one of you could use Outlook, one of you could use Google,
Oh, okay.
and it's interchangeable.
It's interesting.
It's interchangeable, yeah, so.
Have you written an app to us?
Well, what kind of phone do you have?
iPhone.
Good. So I personally like the built-in Apple Calendar app, and I can show you after we're done even like how we can do it. But I love the fact that the calendar is an objective record of how we're spending our time. So am I spending too much time at work? Answer yes. So I need to prioritize making time for my wife and kids. But if you only see what you're sharing, you might not see the whole picture.
So you're actively, as a man,
Yep.
putting in your sports. Like
Yes.
you're making the time at work. You're
Yep.
busy.
Yep.
Jay's busy.
Yeah.
You're the one. He has his calendar at work. Now he's going to put in. Oh, I got to tell Lizzie I'm watching soccer.
Yes.
On Saturday from 12 to 3.
Exactly.
I don't know if he would do that.
He will do it.
Wait a minute, so
Yep.
I get up, I like to watch sports,
Yeah.
and on the weekends I'll get up and I'll read, we should get some New York Post,
Yeah.
and I'll read what's on TV. Oh, hey, look, it's this game, so I don't
Yep.
see it in advance, I see
Okay.
it like the day of.
So here's the thing.
It's a game time decision.
Okay, but I think I mentioned this last week. So if you want to be good at marriage, you need to develop the ability to see things coming. You were surprised to discover that an attractive sporting event was happening later that day. I bet you $1 million that game was scheduled months in advance, if not years in advance.
I'm just gonna block off 3 hours.
Yeah. For sports.
So, but I don't know, we'll talk later over beer. But to take one example from a session, the guy was just madly passionate about like Manchester United. And Manchester United already has a cloud-based calendar. It took me like 2 minutes to just find the link and put it in both their phones. So it automatically, the schedule for Manchester United shows up on both of their phones. But look, I was like you, Jay, and just everything was last minute. My wife was constantly frustrated with me, and the breakthrough came that I did not schedule the game. And if I just give my wife enough advance notice, she could have planned accordingly, particularly if I'm using that balance idea, like, hey, we'll have lunch before the game. But the games are, you did not schedule the game. It's one of my jokes. They don't consult me on the football schedule. They make the schedule without me, but it's there, and I can, with a little advanced plan, I can predict I want to watch the game. So what I do is I go through the schedule far in advance. In the year 2015, they scheduled the Notre Dame Ohio State football game for this coming Labor Day weekend in the year 2015. I actually gave my wife 8 years notice that I would be watching the game. So as soon as the games are scheduled, literally put it on. I put it on the calendar. So you got to get good. You got to get good at using a calendar. It took me a year. It took me a year to go from being a little bit laid back about things to being really good at it. Now, Lizzie, if you want to incentivize Jay looking at the calendar, my wife does put hot dates on the calendar. It works. But one of the keys, you need to put fun on the calendar. If you're only putting on take Johnny to soccer or this or that, we put fun on the calendar so it becomes something you want to do. I want to look at the calendar. I want to put things, and I want my wife to be happy. And if we're leading an imbalanced life, she's not going to be happy. So I realize I want to be able to enjoy the game without my wife bickering. So if I could give her that advance notice and the balance, it works.
It's kind of like what you talked about last week, the planned conversations.
Yes.
You know what's coming, so like I can go get a manicure. He's watching, basically what you're saying, like it becomes this
Yeah, everybody's happy.
spontaneous
Yeah.
weekend. You're doing this, wait, okay, now I got a plan.
But Jay, just to share, it was unbelievable. My wife was almost always upset when I watched games. She wanted to be either clean or let's go on a hike together or something. Then I started putting the games on the calendar, and my wife was actually completely happy once I started giving her advance notice. She's like, great, you're going to be watching a game. Now I don't feel bad about going out with my friends or, so giving each other advance notice is just amazing. I was like, it was that easy? All I had to do was give her advance notice, and then she's happy about what I do. Advance notice is really important.
I guess it was wrong to assume that our kids play soccer. I like to watch soccer. I thought that you might evolve into soccer watching.
Jay, you and I definitely need a beer because before I met my wife, I wrote down a list of the characteristics of the ideal woman. Number one thing I was looking for is a woman who likes to go to bars and watch games. And my wife is not the ideal woman, so you and I can share some sorrows. But but the key is we're doing enough together that we love, and then we give each other the space to do the independent things that the other loves. Again, this whole concept of balance is really, really important. So, and balance does not happen naturally. It's just my opinion. So you need to plan for balance.
I've got a question
Sure.
for you.
Yep.
You were talking about making sort of small micro dates.
Yep.
For the relationship, and I'm curious. You mentioned a couple times you and your wife have 2 morning dates a
Yep.
week,
Yep.
which seems great. How do you balance the sort of quality, really sort of deep relationship time
Yep.
with the logistical, oh, we've got to make sure we do this
Okay.
and that thing's coming up.
Good. So very good question. By the way, this is another reason I'm a fan of relationship efficiency. So one of the most awesome things, I'm an advocate of systems. So if you're ready, shared calendar, shared to-do app, and shared note-taking app. My wife almost never has to remind me to do anything, which is known as a miracle. I do recommend AnyList. AnyList is a shared to-do list. It allows you to have multiple shared to-do lists. My wife seemingly spent half of her day, don't forget we need milk. Hey, can you do this? So we set up a system. Hey, you don't even have to tell me what we need. Just go straight to the to-do list. I'm in the habit of looking at it as I leave work. The calendar, my wife and I almost never have to discuss who's taking Johnny to soccer on Saturday. She can see, hey, you're working on Saturday, or the game is on Saturday. I'll take Johnny to soccer. So by having systems, we don't have to spend so much time on logistical conversation. But this is 2 Christmases ago, we were just so crazy busy. And amazingly enough, my wife and I almost did zero logistical discussion of Christmas, almost zero. Yet it was perfect. And I credit AnyList. We just had the list of everything that needed to be done. We never had to talk to each other. Whenever any of us had a free moment, we would just see what needed to be done. You could update it in real time. But actually, AnyList. But actually, I like grocery shopping because it's a geeky thing. You know, like I can cross things off. The AnyList even organizes it by aisle. And from home, my wife can see my progress. You know, it's like so I don't like grocery shopping, but I like the techie aspect of it. It makes it fun. So I'm an advocate. Yes, you do need to talk logistics every now and then, but to have systems so the logistical conversation goes here, and then you create space for more meaningful conversation. So this morning, my wife and I had an hour set aside. Yes, we did discuss, my brother's coming this weekend, so we did discuss a little bit of like what's gonna happen this coming weekend. But mostly it was like I was too tired last night. I went away on this wedding weekend, and last night my wife even said, you probably don't want to talk about it, right? I said, I do not want to talk about it. But tomorrow morning, after a night of sleep, I can share with you all the ins and outs. And share some of the stories and have a more meaningful connection. So, yes, I'm going to advocate a system so the logistical conversations, or you don't need them as much. Yep. Any?
No, I meant you shrink down the logistical,
Yep.
opens up the meaningful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it pains me when I meet these great couples who haven't had a meaningful conversation in years. You know, I'm like, you guys are interesting. You should be having great conversations, but you're just so overwhelmed. And so anyway, yeah. Any other thoughts or questions or? John Paul is the most eligible bachelor in New York City. I mean, we have to find the greatest woman for him. Look at him.
He's taking more notes than.
Yeah, he's gonna be ready. He's gonna be ready.
Yeah, you can put that on your wedding vows. And I
Yeah.
can't make
Actually,
So how
sure.
single folks you get in this class?
You know, I do. Well, first of all, I have had single people take my program. I actually, John Paul, I may not have told you this last week, but I started this when I was single because I'm like, I need to figure this out. So it's just so complicated. And actually, it helped me when I met my wife. I was like, I thought I was looking for someone who liked to go to bars and watch football games. That's what I thought I was looking for. So Pope John Paul said I should be looking for something a little different. So when I finally met my wife, I'm like, this is a woman that I can really have that marriage with. So to study this when you're single is really awesome, and I did it myself, and it helped. My dream is to do a program, like to retire early to a college campus and start like a center for like relationship, you know, and marriage at a college campus. That's my dream. If anyone's out there, Notre Dame is #1 on the list. There are a few others that I'd be sent for. Include the football tickets. They could be expensive. Any other questions? Okay, so you're welcome to, I'm going to stay and have a beer, and you're certainly welcome, and I'll show you even some of these things in detail if you need to. But anyway, thank you all for coming on a stormy night. So thank you guys.